The champagne glass slipped from my hand and shattered across the marble floor. A gasp rippled through the guests, sharp as broken crystal. My sister stood on the staircase in her glittering gown, smiling like a queen at her coronation. And at her side, our parents clapping with pride, as if nothing had just been stolen from me. They had announced it so casually, like a toast. "We used your wedding fund, darling, but look, your sister has her dream home now." The room roared with applause. I felt the blood drain from my face. My wedding, my future, was gone, siphoned into her keys and mortgage papers. And the worst part? They expected me to smile. My father's smug grin cut through the crowd. My mother's hand squeezed my arm, nails digging in. "Don't make a scene," she hissed. "Family comes first." I swallowed the rage, the humiliation, the betrayal. But inside, something shifted. When I look back, the warning signs were always there. I was the eldest child, the reliable one, the fixer. If a pipe leaked, I was under the sink. If Mom forgot her prescription, I'd drive across town to pick it up. Birthdays, hospital visits, tax season. My role was to hold everything together, quietly, without complaint. My sister, Claire, was different. She was the golden child, the dreamer. Where I was steady, she was dazzling. Teachers adored her, neighbors gushed about her, and my parents, well, they built their entire world around her sparkle. I didn't resent her at first. I actually admired her confidence, her ability to take up space without apology. But admiration turned to unease when I realized admiration wasn't enough for my parents. They needed comparison, they needed contrast. For Claire to shine, I had to dim. Our house reflected it. My childhood bedroom still had the same faded wallpaper I grew up with, peeling in the corners. Claire's? She got a full remodel every other year. New paint, new curtains, even a chandelier once. Birthdays told the same story. At 16, I got a secondhand laptop for school, practical and gray. Claire, 2 years later, got a brand new car with a bow on top. When I raised an eyebrow, Mom only said, "She needs it more, honey. You're tougher. You can manage." That phrase, "you can manage," was practically my family's motto for me. By the time I was in my mid-20s, I had built a steady life. I wasn't flashy, but I was proud of it. I worked long hours, saving carefully, because I believed in building a future brick by brick. That's when my parents surprised me, a wedding fund. They called it an investment in my happiness. $60,000 locked away, so that when you find the right person, you won't have to worry about expenses. I remember staring at the account statement, my throat tight. It wasn't just the money, it was validation. Proof that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't invisible after all. So I guarded that fund like a treasure chest. Not because I was obsessed with a fairy tale wedding, but because it was mine. Finally, mine. But favoritism never really rests, does it? Claire would parade into family dinners with stories of exotic vacations she couldn't afford. My parents would nod, glowing with pride, while I quietly refilled their wine glasses and asked about their week. One night, I overheard Dad on the phone. "Don't worry, sweetie. We'll help you with the down payment. Your brother doesn't need much. He's simple." Simple. That word stung more than selfish or ungrateful ever could. Still, I bit my tongue. Because arguing only made me look bitter, and bitterness was the last thing I wanted to carry. Then came the sting. The first humiliation that cracked my patience. It was during a summer barbecue. The backyard buzzed with chatter, smoke rising from the grill, the air thick with heat and laughter. Neighbors mingled, kids ran with sparklers, and I stood by the cooler, sipping soda, happy just to exist in the moment. That's when Mom clinked her glass, calling for attention. "We're so proud of Claire," she announced, arm wrapped around my sister. "She's just been pre-approved for her dream home. And of course, we're pitching in to help her get settled." Applause followed and Claire beamed, soaking in the spotlight. Then, as if on cue, Mom's eyes landed on me. "And our son—" She paused, smiling like she was tossing me a bone. "Well, he's always been the dependable one. He's saving up nicely for his wedding someday, aren't you, dear?" A few guests chuckled. Someone muttered, "Hope she says yes." Heat crawled up my neck. I forced a laugh, but my chest burned. My savings, my fund, wasn't a party anecdote. It was my lifeline. That night, lying in bed, the word dependable echoed in my head. Dependable didn't mean valued. Dependable meant expendable. And deep down, I felt the ground shifting beneath me. Something was coming. The weeks after that barbecue were restless. My parents spoke of Claire's new house as if it were a royal palace being prepared. Every phone call, every dinner conversation circled back to it. Square footage, mortgage rates, paint colors. My wedding fund, the one they had promised, seemed forgotten. At least that's what I hoped. But denial is a fragile shield. One night, I came home from work, shoulders aching, tie loosened, to find my parents at the kitchen table with Claire. Papers were spread out like a deck of cards. Loan agreements, realtor brochures, closing costs. Claire's voice was bright, theatrical. "It's just perfect, Mom. 5 bedrooms, a huge backyard. I can host holidays." Holidays. Our holidays. I stepped closer. "What's all this?" Dad glanced up, too casual. "Claire's mortgage details. She'll need help covering the down payment, of course." My stomach tightened. "Help? How?" Silence. Then Mom's eyes flicked to me, soft and sharp at once. "Sweetheart, your fund is just sitting there. And family comes first." The words hit like ice water. "My fund?" I asked, voice unsteady. Dad sighed, as though I were the unreasonable one. "You'll understand when you're older." I was 27. From that night on, the house felt hostile. Claire stopped trying to hide her smirk around me, as if she'd already won. Mom and Dad avoided eye contact whenever finances came up. I tried to argue, gently at first. "That money was for my wedding," I reminded them. "You're not even engaged," Mom snapped. "It doesn't matter," I said. "It's mine." "Everything we have is family," Dad replied. Family. The word twisted like a knife. Sleep became impossible. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, chest pounding. The future I'd been building toward felt like sand slipping through my fingers. At work, I lost focus, double-checking numbers I normally trusted myself with. Even my hands shook pouring coffee some mornings. Stress clung to me like smoke. Neighbors noticed, too. One evening, Mrs. Grant from next door caught me outside and tilted her head. "You look pale, love." "Everything all right?" I forced a smile. "Just busy." She gave me that knowing look, the one older women reserve for truths you won't admit. The worst part wasn't even the money. It was the isolation. Relatives I once trusted started to turn cold. Word spread, twisted by my parents' version of events. At Sunday dinner, an aunt leaned across the table and whispered, "Don't be selfish. Your sister needs stability." I clenched my fork so tightly, my knuckles ached. Selfish? For wanting what was promised to me? It felt like drowning in plain sight. Everyone watching, no one reaching out. And then, an unexpected voice. I was in the office break room, rubbing my temples, when a coworker named Daniel walked in. We weren't close, just the kind of colleagues who exchanged polite nods. "You okay?" he asked, pouring himself coffee. I hesitated, then muttered, "Family stuff." He gave a humorless laugh. "Let me guess, money?" That startled me. I glanced up, and he shrugged. "Been there. Parents drained my savings once to help out my brother. Took me years to recover. Something in his tone, bitter but steady, struck a chord. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of recognition. I wasn't alone. That night, I replayed our brief conversation again and again. His words weren't advice, not really, but they carried weight. I survived this. You can too. And for the first time, I felt a flicker of resistance. Maybe I didn't have to just endure. Maybe I could fight back. I wish I could say my parents backed off after that they saw my anger, felt my pain, and reconsidered. But favoritism, once fed, doesn't starve. It grows. 2 weeks later, they called a family meeting. I arrived at the house to find Claire perched smugly on the couch, scrolling her phone. Papers, my papers, were stacked neatly on the coffee table. Dad cleared his throat. "We've decided it's best if your fund goes toward Claire's home. She'll benefit now, and when it's your turn, we'll figure something out." My pulse thundered. "We'll figure something out?" That's $60,000. My 60,000. Mom crossed her arms. You're overreacting. Family sacrifices for each other. No, I said, voice sharper than I'd intended. Sacrifices are chosen, not stolen. The room froze. Claire smirked, as if she enjoyed the show. The next day, I found out they weren't just threatening. They had already moved the money. I stood in my bank's sterile lobby, the hum of fluorescent lights above me, as the teller explained. Yes, the withdrawal was authorized. Joint account holders signed. Joint? I whispered. Yes, your parents' names are still attached. The world tilted. My chest tightened, ears ringing. They hadn't just stolen my fund. They had planned it that way from the beginning, locking me into an account where my trust was a liability. That night, I confronted them. My voice shook, but I didn't back down. You stole from me. Dad leaned back in his chair, unfazed. Legally, it's our money. Don't forget who earned it in the first place, Mom chimed in, her tone sugar-coated venom. You'll thank us someday. Your sister will have stability. You don't even have a fiancé. I clenched my fists. So because I'm not married yet, I don't deserve what you promised me? Claire laughed softly. Maybe you should have proposed faster. That laugh, light, cruel, dismissive, was gasoline on the fire. They thought I'd crumble, but rage has a way of clearing the fog. I started documenting everything, texts, emails, bank statements, every snide remark, every family sacrifice speech. And when I reached out quietly to Daniel, my coworker, he didn't just sympathize, he offered advice. Get it in writing. Every conversation, every transfer. Build your case. Case. The word echoed like a spark in dry timber. The next escalation came faster than I expected. My parents called relatives, spreading their version, that I was selfish, ungrateful, and attacking family over money. A cousin texted, "Why are you making things so hard for Claire?" It worked for a while. I felt cornered, outnumbered, until one message changed everything. My aunt, the quiet one, the one who usually stayed neutral, sent me a scanned copy of an old letter, my grandfather's will. In it, he'd written, "I want this fund to support his future. He's earned it, not Claire, not family, me, proof." For the first time, the scales tipped. I tucked that letter into a folder with my bank statements and notes. The file grew thicker each night, like armor being forged piece by piece. And slowly, a realization formed. They thought they still had control. But control only works if the victim plays along. I wasn't playing anymore. The night before Claire's house closing, Dad cornered me in the driveway. The air was heavy with the smell of cut grass, the street lamps casting long shadows. "You're going to ruin this family if you keep pushing," he warned. His voice was low, threatening. I met his gaze and for the first time, didn't look away. "You already did." He blinked, caught off guard. For a flicker of a second, I saw it. The crack in his certainty. Narrator's voiceover, sharp and steady. They thought they still had control. They didn't. Once the cracks appeared, the whole facade started to crumble. My parents weren't content with stealing my fund. They needed to control the narrative. Soon, whispers followed me everywhere. At church, at family dinners, even in the grocery store, I caught the glances. He's jealous. He's bitter. He's trying to ruin Claire's happiness. Rumors spread like wildfire, and every retelling warped me into the villain. Claire, of course, stoked the flames. On social media, she posted photos of her new house, keys in hand, champagne in the other. The captions always had a sting, grateful for family who knows how to support dreams. Friends tagged me, asking, "Aren't you excited for her?" Excited? My jaw ached from grinding my teeth, but instead of exploding, I adapted. Daniel's advice replayed in my head. Get it in writing. Build your case. So I did. Every text from my parents went into a folder. Every voicemail, every thinly veiled guilt trip, archived. "Mom, if you keep pushing this, you'll break our family apart." Dad, be smart. Claire's happiness is everyone's win. I saved them all. Proof of manipulation layered on top of theft. And in the center of my growing arsenal sat the letter, Grandpa's will. His words were simple, but they cut sharper than anything my parents could twist. I want this fund to support his future. He's earned it. That letter wasn't just paper. It was my anchor. My reminder that I wasn't crazy, wasn't selfish, wasn't wrong. Still, the pressure mounted. One evening, I came home to find my tires slashed. The message was clear: stop resisting. My parents swore they had nothing to do with it, but Claire's smug silence spoke volumes. I documented that too. Photos, police report, another layer of evidence. Therapy helped more than I expected. I hadn't planned on it. Daniel suggested it when he noticed the weight on my shoulders. "You're fighting a war," he said. "But even warriors need armor." My therapist didn't offer solutions, just clarity. She taught me how to breathe when the walls closed in, how to remind myself that standing up for what's mine wasn't selfish, it was survival. Slowly, I stopped feeling like prey. I started to feel like a strategist, and strategy meant allies. The aunt who sent me Grandpa's letter grew bolder, slipping me more family documents, banknotes, receipts, records my parents thought buried. She wasn't loud, but her quiet defiance fueled me. Even Mrs. Grant next door became a supporter. One evening, she leaned over the fence and whispered, "They talk loud, but I see who you are. Don't let them silence you." Those words, simple, steady, felt like reinforcements arriving on a battlefield. Meanwhile, Claire's perfect image began to crack. Moving into her house wasn't as seamless as she flaunted. Contractors quit, bills piled up, and without the full support of my parents' wallets, she started to strain. I noticed her posts changed tone, less glitter, more desperation. Smiles looked forced, captions a little too defensive. For the first time, I saw it. She wasn't untouchable. As my evidence piled up, so did my resolve. Every night, I'd sit at my desk under the harsh glow of the lamp, sorting files into neat stacks. Texts, bank withdrawals, Grandpa's will, photos of the slashed tires, witness statements. Piece by piece, I was building something unshakable. And while my parents thought they had painted me into a corner, I knew better. The day of reckoning was no longer a threat. It was a countdown. Narrator's voiceover, low and certain. The day of reckoning was coming, and no one could stop it. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. Claire's housewarming party was meant to be her grand victory lap. The invitations were gilded, the catering expensive, the guest list stacked with relatives, neighbors, and family friends. I almost didn't go, but something in me knew. This was the stage, the perfect moment. The house glittered with fresh paint and polished floors, but beneath it all, I smelled desperation. Claire fluttered from guest to guest, showing off marble countertops and walk-in closets like they were crown jewels. My parents shadowed her, glowing with pride. And me? I stood near the back, folder in hand, heart pounding steady. Not nervous, ready. Halfway through the evening, Dad raised a glass. His voice boomed over the crowd. To Claire, for building a future worth celebrating. This home is proof of what family can achieve when we sacrifice for each other. The words twisted like a knife. Sacrifice. Their favorite weapon. Guests clapped. Claire beamed, and then Dad's eyes found mine. Even her brother had a part to play. Laughter rippled. The humiliation was sharp, electric, but this time I didn't swallow it. I stepped forward. "Funny," I said, my voice calm but carrying. "Because what you call sacrifice, I call theft." The room went silent. All eyes turned. Claire froze, her glass trembling slightly. My mother's smile faltered. Dad's face flushed red. "What are you doing?" Mom hissed. I placed the folder on the counter, opening it with deliberate care. Pages fanned out, bank statements, text messages, photos, and at the very top, Grandpa's will. "This," I said, tapping the paper, "is proof. Proof that the $60,000 fund was mine, that Grandpa left it for my future, and proof that you siphoned it away to buy this house." Gasps echoed around the room. Relatives leaned in, whispering. Dad tried to laugh, but it came out strained. "You're making a scene." "No," I cut in, steady. "You made the scene when you forged the narrative. When you told everyone I was selfish for asking for what was mine, I held up the letter, reading aloud Grandpa's words. I want this fund to support his future. He's earned it." The words hung heavy in the air, undeniable. Claire's face drained of color. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said. "You wanted a house. Mom and Dad wanted their golden child to shine. So they broke promises, stole from me, and smeared my name to cover it. The silence after that was suffocating. Guests shifted uncomfortably, some glaring at my parents, others avoiding their gaze. I turned toward my mother. Her hands trembled around her glass. "You told me family comes first. But what you meant was Claire comes first. Always. No matter who gets hurt." For the first time, Dad didn't have a comeback. His jaw clenched, his hand tightening on the countertop until his knuckles whitened. I leaned forward slightly, my voice low but sharp as glass. "I don't want apologies. I want change." The room felt frozen in time. Claire sank into a chair, covering her face with her hands. Mom stared at the floor, lips pressed thin. Dad opened his mouth, then shut it again, defeated. And I, after years of being the quiet one, the dependable one, the expendable one, stood tall, unshaken. The truth was out. The empire of favoritism they had built so carefully had collapsed in one evening, under the weight of undeniable proof. Narrator's voiceover, calm but resolute. They thought humiliation would silence me, but silence was never strength. It was submission, and I was done submitting. The days after the housewarming were eerily quiet. No calls, no texts, not even the constant hum of gossip that usually swirled around my parents. It was as if the entire family had been stunned into silence, waiting for someone to make the next move. But for once, it wasn't me who had to move. Claire's housewarming triumph turned into a scandal overnight. Relatives whispered about the stolen fund instead of her marble countertops. Neighbors who had once adored her posts now avoided her smug smile. Even her friends grew distant, because no one wants to be associated with theft dressed up as sacrifice. My parents tried damage control. Mom called, voice trembling. "We just wanted to give her a good start. Can't you understand?" I answered calmly. "You wanted to give her my start. And no, I don't understand." When Dad tried to intimidate me with threats about family reputation, I only said, "Reputation is already gone, and you destroyed it yourselves." For the first time in my life, their words didn't shake me. Meanwhile, I built something better. I moved into a new apartment across town, a small place, but mine. No whispers in the walls, no shadows of favoritism pressing down on me. I hung Grandpa's letter in a frame above my desk, the proof of both betrayal and resilience. The piggy bank I once filled with coins as a child, I dug it out of storage. Instead of coins, I began filling it with crisp $2 bills, each one a reminder that worth isn't measured by anyone else's approval. Piece by piece, I created a home defined not by what was taken from me, but by what I reclaimed. And I wasn't alone. Daniel invited me to join his friends for weekend dinners. My aunt, the one who had slipped me the will, became a regular caller, her quiet support growing louder with time. Even Mrs. Grant checked in with warm meals and sharper gossip than I ever imagined. I was learning something new. Family isn't just blood. It's whoever shows up when the world turns cold. As for Claire, the cracks widened. Without constant parental funding, the house became a burden instead of a dream. Repairs piled up, payments loomed, and without the applause of relatives to mask it, she was forced to face the truth. The crown she wore was made of glass. One afternoon, I saw her outside the grocery store, looking worn and older than her years. She opened her mouth like she wanted to speak, maybe even to apologize. But I walked past, not out of spite, but peace. Some words no longer mattered. The greatest shift wasn't in them, it was in me. I stopped waiting for validation that would never come. I stopped being the dependable one, whose silence made their favoritism easier. Now, I was the one setting boundaries, the one choosing who had access to me. The humiliation of that champagne toast, of being laughed at in front of strangers, felt like a lifetime ago. That night, I had been a victim. Now, I was free. One evening, I stood in my new apartment, the city lights glowing outside my window, and reflected on it all. "They thought they'd broken me," I whispered. "But all they did was teach me how strong I really am." The air was calm, no tension pressing against my chest. Just peace. And as I dropped another bill into the piggy bank, the clink of folded paper sounded louder than applause, louder than humiliation. It sounded like victory. Narrator's closing reflection. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The start of a life where I chose my worth, my family, and my peace. And no one, no matter how powerful they once seemed, could ever take that from me again. Have you ever faced betrayal at the hands of the very people who were supposed to protect you? Have you ever been told you were selfish just for standing up for yourself while someone else was handed everything you'd worked for? If you have, then you know this story isn't just mine, it's ours. Tell me in the comments, how did you rise above favoritism, manipulation, or abuse of power? I want to hear your voice, because when we share our stories, we remind each other we're not alone. Remember this, worth isn't something they give you, it's something you claim for yourself. And once you do, no one can ever take it away.